What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for stopping in. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button right now. I appreciate you following along, but we have a major goal ahead of us, trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by June, and I think we can do it. This past week we hit 250 subscribers, so thank you all very much for the first 250. We are a quarter of the way there. With that being said, I'm kind of tossing around some ideas in my mind here. If you've been following along for a while, you may have heard me mention a time or two that my brother and I had a small business when we lived back in Texas called Speed and Mayhem Studios. We worked on some cars and trucks, mostly exhaust and suspension type stuff, but we kind of focused on revitalizing or customizing motorcycles, specifically old Japanese bikes. So we worked a lot on cafe racers and bobbers, things of that nature. So it was a lot of fun, but as we kind of waned away, or we kind of began the process of relocating to the East Coast, we slowly shut that business down and got rid of our last few projects before we moved. But I have a few t-shirts left and a bunch of stickers, so I'm kind of thinking about doing maybe a giveaway, or like I guess you'd call it a giveaway for the first 500 subscribers. So everyone in that first group of 500 will be automatically placed in the drawing. I guess that's what it would be, a drawing, and we'll get a t-shirt and a sticker, or a couple stickers, whatever. Just thinking about that. If there's any interest, please let me know. If you check out my Instagram page, One Fine Track, same thing. On Instagram, you'll actually see my profile picture. I'm wearing one of those t-shirts. It's black, round with the skull and a crown. Speed and Mayhem Studios. A pretty cool t-shirt. Anyway, let me know if you're interested in the comments below. Something I'm just thinking about. Otherwise, we got some stuff happening today. I'm just kind of thinking about positive crankcase ventilation, PCV. So that's what I'm going to be looking at under the hood today. So check out my last couple of videos. We got the exhaust system finally finished up, but there was a slight exhaust leak at the Y pipe in the collector. It turned out that it was a gasket issue, so I had a Vibrant Performance 3-inch gasket, so I decided to replace that today. So this is the gasket that came with the 1320 Performance Y pipe, and I just swapped it out today because, as I said, there was a slight exhaust leak coming from the collector portion that we just installed. And look at here, we got a split, and we got another split. So I'm not sure if this comes from is due to the crappy quality of the gasket. It seemed to be decent, but it's mostly paper, it feels like, so it's a little, yeah, quality's not great. But anyway, we swapped it out with the Vibrant Performance gasket today, which has kind of another reinforced lip, and I should have showed you before we put it in, but it should make a huge difference. But you'll probably also remember, anyway, that I recently installed the Z1 Motorsports silicone intake tubes to accompany the drop-in filters. So with those intake tubes, some things got changed up. There were obviously there's a tube running to the original intake tubes that ventilates your crankcase, your valve cover, and there's some boxes or baffles connected to it or in line. So if there's any blow-by, which there's very little probably on these cars, but if you're planning on putting the car on the dyno and you're doing several hard pulls, or you have the draggy and you're doing some runs on the road or on the closed track, high RPM will cause a little increase in blow-by, which gets routed back into your intake and through your throttle body and plenum and into your engine, which changes up air-fuel ratio and has some pretty significant impact. So that's a concern of mine now, and I've been thinking about it and kind of mulling it over and laying in bed at night thinking about it, and I think it's something that we have to address. There is a PCV Delete kit from maybe Concept Z, maybe, or Z1. Yeah, I think it's Concept Z. I'll put a link in the description below. Anyway, it's for the G cars, but I think it'll be compatible with the Q50 and 60. I don't think the layout of the engine has changed necessarily for this 3.7, so I think everything would fit up in the same locations. But like I said, it's a concern of mine, especially since we're trying to make some decent, consistent power. I don't want the air-fuel ratios to be getting messed up by oil mist getting routed back into the intake, but also having that oil mist gum up your throttle body over time and getting down into the actual intake manifold. That's not going to be good either. So I want to try to prevent that, and because we had to take those baffles out to get everything to fit up, and those boxes where I assume kind of acted as a collection or a collector point anyway, I'm just trying to think about some different options. Some will say that positive crankcase ventilation is really important, and it helps ring seal and all sorts of stuff like that. But then you hear from the guys on the website saying there's no issue with that whatsoever, and just basically rerouting things and putting 2 little filters on the end of a hose is going to be just fine. But then I read some feedback saying that there is some oil residue left in the engine bay because the filters don't really work or don't really do much of anything. So there's a lot to think about. So if any of you have any experience with this kit, let me know. I'd appreciate the feedback. It'd be the first time that I would install it. Working on those old muscle cars or those old trucks, you ventilated the valve cover by sticking a filter on it, and that was it. And sometimes the engine bays are oily and dirty anyway, especially if you're working on rat rods and things like I was working on. It just it completed the look, and you just had to keep up with it. You wiped your valve covers off, and you cleaned everything up every once in a while. But a car like this, it's clean and everything's plastic under the engine bay, and it's a relatively new car. I don't know if I want to be dealing with that necessarily. So a couple things to think about, but I'm going to pull the tubes off today and open things up and make sure or actually confirm whether or not there is oil making its way up into the throttle body. If there's any residue at all, we should be able to feel it or see it with a rag. We'll just wipe it off inside and see what happens. So let's open everything up and take a look. And sorry for being a little MIA the last week or so. I was actually out of country on business, out of country. By that I mean Canada, in Toronto, Canada for the last week. Went from an ice storm and then flew down to Miami for a quick stop, and then Orlando. So from one extreme to the other, but we are back here in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. And we're moving on with some projects. And there's what I'm talking about, able to retain that one little box there. So any blow-by that comes up may get caught in the box. I guess maybe similar to a catch can. I mean, similar, not the same, similar. Alright, got the air box opened up. Disconnected or loosened the clamps, and we got this pulled away. First look inside. Try to get this so you can see here. Looks completely clean. We'll stick a finger and see what we find. There is no evidence of oil visibly or with a finger or a rag. This seems completely dry. I wish you could see better. And this is dirty. We're gonna have to clean this up. But nothing in there. That was the side that we were able to retain one of the baffle boxes or reservoirs, whatever you want to call it, whatever it actually does. So we're going to open up the other side and make sure that the side where we eliminated all of that plastic material, the plastic boxes, the baffles, whatever, and just have a hose going directly from the valve cover back to the intake tube, we'll make sure that there's no oil on that side either. So let's button this side up. These air boxes can be a pain to open up or close, but I'm getting pretty good at it at this point. My suggestion is you loosen this up really good. Take your 2 little bolts out. So this has some flex. Angle it when you put it in with it rotated more this way. Get your little hook in this loop down here first. Then you work over to this side, get the box lined up, get it in its loop on this side, and squeeze it together. Boom. It goes together pretty fast if you do it in the proper way, using the kind of a technique that I have almost perfected. And instead of those plastic boxes, this hose connects directly to the intake tube and just kind of does a loop right here and heads back down to if you can see it right there, to the valve cover. You can barely see it, but anyways, I was hoping that the length of tube would minimize blow by getting all the way back up to here, throttle body and plenum area, and just visually it doesn't look like there's anything. Don't feel anything greasy. Butterfly looks okay as well. I mean, everything's dry. So I would have expected to notice something, at least a little bit of residue, if there was indeed a blow-by issue. We've done a couple of hard pulls lately. If you check back, if you haven't been following along, my last video and the video prior to that, we got the draggy, and we've tried a couple of pulls, 0 to 60, testing out 30 foot time and things like that. And if you've seen it, obviously you know what I'm talking about. But obviously wide open throttle for not too long, but a couple back-to-back pulls, and you know, with that, I would have assumed that if there was going to be some blow-by, we would have seen a little bit of residue, or at least felt a little bit of residue. Now, that's not necessarily saying that there isn't any, or you know, there isn't any oil mist making its way up through the intake tubes and through the throttle body and plenum area. But with that being said, I think I got to keep this potential PCV Delete or some alternative way about doing things in the back of my head, just because, you know, we're getting the car tuned in a couple of weeks, and obviously on the dyno we're gonna really push the car to its limits, obviously, and then after that's done, of course we're gonna want to test it out and you know, set up the draggy and see what kind of improvements we're going to be making in terms of performance and things like that. And just obviously having the tuned car and the exhaust done, we're going to want to push it anyway, just because it's going to be more fun to drive. So I want to make sure that we're not having any issues with oil making its way up into the intake manifold and causing problems, like I said, with the air-fuel ratio and gunking things up and things of that nature. I apologize for this video not being super exciting. But I just wanted to keep you up to date in terms of, you know, where I'm at in the progression and things that I'm thinking about now that we're making some changes to the car. The car's relatively new, right? It's only got 34,000 miles on it. It's a 2015. So, you know, you don't want to just start making a bunch of changes, changing up the exhaust and doing all sorts of things like this and not pay attention to what else is happening in the car. Every car is going to react a little bit differently, but you just want to make sure you stay on top of things. So that's where I'm at. I got things going through my mind, and I want to make sure, you know, as we're making these changes and you know, we're increasing performance, we're increasing stress on the engine, and we're not neglecting it in terms of keeping it safe and running efficiently and effectively. So that's where I'm at, and I wanted to make sure I touched base now. I was kind of MIA for the last week, I know. And if you were looking forward to videos, which I hope you are, if you were looking forward to them, I apologize for not getting them out. I was actually out of country, and out of the country, I mean Canada, eh? So I was in Toronto for several days and then flew to the other extreme, Miami, and then to Orlando for work. So I just wasn't able to make any content that was interesting. I didn't really have a whole lot of time. I gotta get better. I gotta film prior and schedule it to be uploaded for the days that I'm gone. So hopefully this doesn't happen again. But we're back, at least for a few days. And I got a couple things that came in while I was out of town. They got delivered to the office because we can't have the wife know everything that we're buying, right? Anyway, I think not super exciting, but it's all part of the plan. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully, I get some footage filmed tomorrow and uploaded within the next day or two. So stay tuned. Some interesting stuff, maybe a little bit of how to. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up as well. It helps the videos get more attention, and the more attention we get, the faster we grow. The faster we grow, the more cool stuff we get to do. So let's make this a successful journey together. One fine trek, one might say. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.